You look at me, you know I'm Mexican American, right? I look this way, shaved head, glasses. If I'm not wearing the glasses, shaved head, you can have an idea of me, but I think I'm fortunate enough to take that idea and put it on its head.
Jesus Trejo.
What's up, man?
You're back on Checkitow.
I'm back. I'm back.
Man.
Thank you for having me. This is super amazing. I like the new studio.
Yeah, man. You know, it's always good to talk to you because, like, you know, I've seen you kind of rise, become a Comedy Store regular. You got your name painted on the wall, and now you're pretty much all over the place. You're doing your own thing, but you're also, you know, appearing on some of these new shows. The first one that we're going to get to is called We Need to Talk About America, and it's on Fuse.
On Fuse.
Okay, so what do we need to talk about?
I mean, the show does a great job. I mean, they got some of the best and funniest first-generation comedians to come in and talk about certain things that may be a little different to other cultures. Like they talk about like gender reveal.
Yeah.
Like that's a big trend that you see online, and I think at least in my culture, just like the old school way, you find out when it's born, you know, that kind of thing. Body piercings, which, you know, it's not a thing that I could bring up to my folks and be like, hey, I'm gonna get, you know, the plates and the earrings. So it's like we do a deep dive to all this social media kind of like things that are popping off, and we just kind of bring in our own perspective, which I think is pretty cool.
And it's very multicultural. Now here at LATV, we're Latin led, but I like Fuse. I got friends at Fuse. It's very black and brown and all kinds of brown, right? Because you got people of Arabic, Middle Eastern descent. You got
everything. Yeah. It's really great. The show's really diverse. It's really funny first and foremost. Like, tons of great comedians, and I happen to be one of them. And I was just so flattered that, shout out to Fuse, that they brought me in and let me be a part of that. So.
Now, I saw you doing some comments with Marcela Arguello next to you.
Yes.
Is she still taller than you?
Yeah, she's still taller than me. I was taller than her for a little bit, but then my hair just fell off and it's gone. Yeah, I mean,
you had the curls.
Yeah, I had the curls, the comb over. I could stretch it and go up to here.
So, you know, several years ago, I did a comedy special featuring what I thought were 4 rising Latino comedians. It was yourself, Melissa Villaseñor. I like to say Pablo Francisco, but it's really Francisco Ramos. I can bug him that way. And Marcela Arguello. Yep. And you guys are killing it now, man.
Man, that is one hell of a group. And, you know, I'm so happy and proud to call them dear friends. And just to see their success. It's been like just on the up and up. And yeah, it's been really cool to see my peers just kill it, you know?
All right, but Marcela's intimidating though, right? Doesn't she intimidate people?
No. I love her. Like, I think she's so funny. She's so cool. I'm like, yeah, whenever I get a chance to see her on stage, I love it. I guess because she's tall, but I don't know. I love it. I love it.
And so on the show, we need to talk about America. Like, I mean, that's kind of like a big trend right now, is seeing this country through the lens of not like white people who are descended from the people that you know came on the Mayflower, but like other people. But we're not really other people. We're about as American as it gets, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because I feel that you are very Latino. You're very, you know, Mexican American, but emphasis on the American, because you're very American.
Yeah, I'm born and raised here in Long Beach, California. My parents are from Mexico. But yeah, it's like my perspective, and I think my point of view definitely was molded by being born in this country, in Southern California, technically. And yeah, so it's like everything. But I also have the rich background, the rich culture of being able to see things through a different lens. And I think when it comes to comedy or point of view, I think that's a strength, right? Because I'm able to see it on both sides of the token, and you kind of average out and kind of land in your own identity, right? So you have these both sides. You can agree, you can disagree, you can agree to disagree, but you land and you kind of shape your own kind of identity, which is what we're seeing now. You know, it's like the Gen Z, millennials, you know, that kind of generation, which I think we're very fortunate to grow up in a time where we had this upbringing from like the baby boomer generation.
Right.
So now we're able to bring that here and kind of explore and enjoy both sides of it.
Now, the thing about your specific, you know, when it comes to like people in entertainment, they talk about things like brand and all that stuff. I almost hate using that word because
let's talk about brand.
Your brand. What's your brand? Because your brand is you, and you happen to be like this smart intellectual. On a bad day, you can use a word like nerdy, but I don't even think of you that way. But let's just say throw that word out there.
Yeah, just throw it out there.
Which is because usually, you know, you've had the deal coming up in the game with the stereotypes, right? And not that the stereotypes need to like be completely, you know, thrown to the side. Some of them ring true, and you have Latino comedians and Mexican comedians who want to like lean into that, and that's fine, and that works a lot. But you kind of break that mold. It's like, well, like here's a different version, like someone who is like, you know, smart in a certain way. Dare I use the word, like
smart. I was like, you're
No.
the first person to use smart towards me.
no,
so-
but here's the
which I
thing, and I'm not
appreciate.
calling the other Latino comedians not smart, but I'm trying to say is like someone who's not Latino is they can kind of relate to you on that level a little bit, being a little bit, you pick on like the odd parts of your life that aren't even
Sure.
necessarily like cultural. It's more like specific to your life. Like, at what point did you realize that was working for you?
That's a very interesting, great question. That is like, I usually don't get to talk about that as much, like when doing like an interview, that kind of thing. So I think I'm able to talk about myself, right? I don't want to downplay who I am as a person. I'm a Mexican American. I'm an only child. It's like certain things that are not typical. You find it kind of like the interesting angle, but at the same time, it's like, I'm much more than Mexican American. I have interest in this. I like food. I'm obsessed with this kind of food. I don't like that food. So it's like, people sometimes just focus on one side of the dice, on the die, and there's more sides to I don't know how to explain it. It's like it's multi-dimensional. It's like people can choose to see it in a 2D way, but in reality, there's another dimension to the person. There's more depth. So I get to bring that on stage. I was able to do my Tonight Show set. I basically did 5 minutes on mustard.
Wow.
Mustard alone. And it was like an observational bit. I kind of took this tangent, that tangent. I talked about ketchup. Yeah, so it's like, it's understood. And I think it's a stylistic choice. It's understood. You look at me, I'm Mexican American, right? I look this way, shaved head, glasses. If I'm not wearing the glasses, shaved head, you can have an idea of me, but I think I'm fortunate enough to take that idea and put it on its head.
Yeah.
And make you realize that I have a sense of humor, something I've worked on for many years.
And you're also breaking out of even though you're part of what, I hate to be cliquish, but you're part of a cool clique when it comes to the Latino, people like Felipe is your friend, and we mentioned,
I'm very
Francisco
lucky
Ramos.
I'm very lucky to have all these amazing Latino comics, but it's like, that's not what comprises a group of friends. It's like, these are my friends. The group outside of that, for God's sakes, I have we're going into third season of Tacos Con Todo. On First We Feast, which I'm celebrating my culture. We're celebrating the families that start these pop-up restaurants, taco trucks, and we celebrate their history. We celebrate their family. Like sometimes you see the family working together. I grew up working with my father, mowing lawns, and I get to celebrate that through comedy, through my peers. Like, this next season we have a lot of great surprises. But as a matter of fact, last night we did an episode with Bobby Lee.
Wow.
And I get to celebrate with him because he's a mentor. He was a mentor to you. Like he was one of those comics that we saw as a young comic walking into the comedy club. He was one of the guys that we saw there and was a staple.
Okay, I gotta ask you like an inappropriate question.
Yeah, what's going on?
Did him and his beautiful Filipina girlfriend kind of invite you into a triage?
No, never. Never.
He doesn't mind those. Well, no, I think he minds them now. Maybe a few months ago, he was like, "I don't mind those jokes." And like, nah. But there was something that happened with Theo Vaughn or something like that. I love their. I think what is it? The Tiger Lily podcast.
Yeah, Tiger Belly.
The Tiger Belly podcast. I find and I know you're gonna be like, hey, his girlfriend is because I was engaged to a Filipina.
Oh, really?
And I didn't know she was Filipina. I thought she was Latina first.
Oh, really?
But you know,
That's
Filipinas
interesting.
have like a little Latin flair.
I could see that.
They're
yeah.
like the Latinas of Southeast Asia.
Okay.
Well, there was the old joke. I don't know who made it. I don't know if I'm gonna get canceled for this or they have to bleep it out. But somebody would say the Filipinos are the beaners of Asia.
Oh, yeah. You probably have to bleep that out.
I'm
for
gonna
sure.
bleep out. I didn't say it. It was.
You gotta cut
it
that
was,
whole thing
It was
out.
Paul Rodriguez or like the old school comedians. Dude, not that your comedy was ever politically incorrect, but I'm sure you have. If I caught you on the improv like 5-6 years ago, you'd have something that was a little toeing the line. Is it hard being a comedian these days, or do you feel that the comedy world is like the last vestige for, not to be mean, not to say things that like are outright like, bigoted and stuff, but is it the last vestige of, are we allowed to toe the line with certain things?
I think, again, going back to what I said earlier of stylistic choice, as a
Right.
comic, you can take that decision of where you want to navigate the ship, and it's very exciting that you could go in any direction, but it also certain directions come with consequences. Certain
Right.
directions come with certain things that the other ones doesn't. So as a comedian, you almost have to decide what quadrant you want to go into. you don't have to stick to it. You can always pivot and change. But I think I always stuck with what I know best, and that's myself, my upbringing, my interests, observational humor, that kind of thing.
You were never a blue comic, even in private.
When private, maybe it's like you tell a joke here and there, but it's like as you get older and you mature, yeah, I mean, it's just like a person. It's like we talk about being a comic just like a person. The jokes that you were laughing at as a 8-year-old are very different to the jokes that you laugh at now, right? It's like maybe as a kid we're laughing at fart jokes, but same thing as a comedian. As you get older and as you kind of build your sense of humor and your frame of reference, there's a different, tangent that you take on.
Yeah, and a lot of some of the politically incorrect stuff, a lot of it is low hanging fruit, and at this point we've kind of gotten through the low hanging fruit, right? So if you kind of go with the same joke, it's like I had Joey Medina here a couple weeks ago, and he's like, some of these people lean into certain jokes that it's like we've already done those jokes, so
Sure.
It's like it's obvious and it's there, but it's already been played out so much that you gotta find a cleverer way to make a point, right?
What is the kind of trend that you see from your perspective? Because you've been on both sides of it. You've been like, seeing comedy kind of evolve. You've seen like us kind of evolve. You yourself have done comedy. What is the trend that you see, and where is it going? Like, I'm always curious to ask that to people.
I think it's the personal thing. I think that if you're not kind of like poking fun at yourself or your life, or you might be making comments and observations about the world, but it's really a reflection of your own personality, I think that's what hits. Because at the end of the day, just like being a good comedy writer on paper and writing good jokes isn't enough.
That's great.
And you have a unique personality. No one can do Jesus Trejo. No one can do Felipe Esparza. No one can do Francisco Ramos. Unless you have an elastic face and a certain accent.
Yeah, right.
No one can do Marcelo Arguello. No one can do. Well, Melissa Villaseñor has a talent for doing other people, but that's kind of her thing. So I think it's a personal thing. And being a little cleverer about the way you say certain things. Like a lot of the played stuff it's been done.
Yeah, and it does give way to like new comics, or even as we continue to build, I mean, it takes years to find your voice. So I think it's like, sometimes parameters are good because they kind of force you to grow in a certain way. If these parameters, I feel like, weren't put in place, one, it's a mindful thing to do. It's like you don't want to, I mean, some comics like want to offend, but it's like, for me, it's like the more parameters I kind of put around myself, the more I'm forced to really be funny. It's like, maybe it helps me, maybe it doesn't, but this is what I want to do, comedy, so I'll figure it out.
Well, when I did those couple of years where I was going out there and taking a stab at comedy, more from a writing perspective, because last year I published a book, and we're about to make it about a movie. Yeah, I should have brought
What's the name of the book?
It's about Fever. It's about the Cuban kids that started the rape scene in Miami, end up robbing drug dealers. One gets killed, one survives and has to get himself out of trouble, right? Wow. The people that did I don't think you're a raver or anything like that.
No,
but the Ultra Music Festival and all that, they come out from under these guys. They were kind of like a little gang, so to speak. And the reason I had to stop doing comedy is that at a certain point, I'm like, do I want to be a comedian or do I want to be a writer? I can't be at a Wednesday night at 11:30 waiting to go up to some bringer show. Especially when I have a full-time job producing, talk shows and stuff like that. So
I got a bringer show tonight, so I'll be waiting till 11. No.
But I mean, you're on a different level now. But going to the grind, dude, like. Especially, I guess the grind sometimes is easy for guys that like to be out and having a beer, although that ends up biting in the ass. For a guy like you, how did you do the grind? Because I don't think of you as a guy that drinks a lot or parties a lot. Like when you're out there, you're like thinking about I've seen you, you're in the corner thinking about what you're going to do. Maybe you're listening to other people. But to do that every night, what was the grind like for you? And do you feel like you're already past that?
No, I'm always in the thick of the grind. I mean, it never stops being a grind. And I think I was... coming up, it's like I had a responsibility to my folks as a caregiver. So I was not necessarily the one hanging out till very late. If I stood out late, it was for my spot. But then I had a responsibility to go back home because of my caregiving duties. And as a matter of fact, you can check out that documentary, Care to Laugh. ARP Studios did a documentary a couple years ago. They followed me for a year as I'm doing stand-up and being a caretaker. And I think the young comic in me thinks I missed out on this certain kind of element to comedy, like the partying and that kind of thing. But part of it was also, it's like, I think that's what gave me the sense of urgency. And I think, this goes back to the whole Mexican-American, part of my life of like, I'm an American, but I'm, my culture is like, I'm happy that I'm able to have the opportunity to take care of my folks, right? So the sense of urgency for me to work hard and not stay out and kind of keep it together for the most part. I mean, we all let loose every once in a while, but it was a sense of urgency that I needed to kind of get a crack in this business to be able to afford healthcare for my folks and that kind of thing, which that's as political as I'll get. You know, the healthcare system, you know, it's like the dynamic of like, you know, the economic, the healthcare aspect of it, that's as political as I'll get.
You know, just going back to, you know, talking about like, you mentioned some comics just want to shock and offend. You know, I think when I first started, because I was young when I first got up to the stage, I'm like, I wanted to shock and offend. And there were jokes. I mean, let's just say I privatized some of my early stand-up acts that I had on YouTube.
But that's your journey, right? We
that
all
was my
started
journey,
that way. We all started that way.
Yeah.
We all went up there and told that offbeat joke, and it was like, it's what we thought was comedy at the time, given the tools that we had and the people that we looked up to, so we wanted to replicate it. But again, with time, just like you as a writer, you've evolved so much. So it's like we all started there.
Sometimes I realized how easy it is to shock and offend. And so is it really, are you being that, so it's way clever to do something that, yeah, maybe, I think that the time that's appropriate to shock and offend is when there's a real truth that you want to hit, but that truth is shocking and offensive. It's a whole different story of, oh, let me get the sensibility of the crowd and just say something that turns them off, just to like and laugh at that. That's a little immature. It's cool to see that and experience that, but at a certain point, there's no cleverness to that. And I believe comedy at the end of the day has to be clever in some sort of way.
Sure.
And
Funny,
I think you
most
have
importantly. I mean, I try, and I think that's what's really hard about stand-up, that it's like, once you land on the hour or you land on XYZ joke, any other line of work, you're like, all right, I accomplished it. I figured out the algorithm. I figured out the solution, the whatever it is. But for comedy, it never ends. It's always creating and going on to the next thing. And going back to what you said, the shock thing is very easy, but at its core, it's a misdirect.
Right.
You're saying something that people don't expect. You know, in English books, they may reference it in textbooks as a derailment. Something that you weren't expecting, it just takes you off course. But the same thing goes for a punchline. So it just requires maybe throwing away the first punchline that comes to mind and looking for that second or third. And that's where the real comedy is. That's where the work is. That's why a comic would get paid whatever they get paid, you know, for the joke, for the work, because the first punchline usually comes to people, civilians, you know, so.
Yeah, the low-hanging fruit aspect. I mean, so now, dude, you're making a living telling jokes.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see the day.
And so you had your Showtime 1 hour special, Stay at Home Son. That came out last year, 2020 or 2021?
Yeah, in 2020. So it was filmed November 2nd, 2019, released in May of 2020.
Right before the pandemic.
Yeah, right before, at the height of the pandemic. And, you know, here we are now. Things are opening up.
Right.
I'm out there touring, building the next hour, and hopefully we'll see a second hour real soon.
Now, Stay at Home Son, the reference is, you know, like you said, you're the caretaker for your parents. You're the only son of your parents. Your parents had you at an advanced stage. So the reference is Stay at Home Son. So
it's like a stay at home dad or stay at home mom. I'm a stay at home son. You know, that was the reference.
Do you still live with them?
Yeah. Still going back and forth. You know, making it work. Going between. You know, LA and Torrance is like.
Oh, so you have a place in LA and then you have your parents' place in Torrance.
My girl stays in downtown LA. So
I
go
saw on
back and
Instagram
forth.
you got your girl.
Yeah.
That's getting serious, huh?
Yeah, it's getting serious.
Is she a
man.
comic too? Is she involved?
No, she's not. She's in philanthropy.
Okay.
You know, she's trying to make the world a better place.
Okay,
so.
cool. We want to
She's a lot cooler than I am.
No, but congratulations, man. Are you guys? I mean, is parenthood something in the future, or is that not something you guys think about?
Sure. I mean, it's a conversation. You know, it's a conversation, and kind of, you know, trying to figure out how that's going to look like, because, you know, again, my responsibilities as a caretaker do kind of prompt a different kind of way of going about things. So our timeline, as we always say, is going to be a little different, but we'll see. You know, time will tell. Yeah,
man. Well, good luck with that. And then just going back to like breaking out of the Latino clique and being, you know, one of the few I would like to see more regulars at the Comedy Store. It's yourself, Francisco Ramos, I think, is there, or who else? Who else is?
So most recently, we had a dear friend, George Perez.
Oh, nice.
He just got passed. Frank Castillo. So it's cool. You know, we're starting to see a lot more raza, as you would say, at the Comedy Store. And It's great. I think it's such a great institution. The Comedy Store, the Comedy Club, like the way that Mitzi Shore set up, this great institution.
Did you ever meet her before she passed?
I did. Yeah. God rest her soul. I was able. So when I toured back then, I toured with Pauly Shore a bunch, and I remember during Christmas time, he would. At one time he told me, he's like, hey, do you want to go set up a Christmas tree for my mother? And I was like, I would love nothing more. So I remember coming back every year around the same time we would be on the road. So I would come back and I get to go buy a Christmas tree with Pauly. We drive it back and I get to decorate it for her. And, I said hi. And I'm very fortunate because my class was not able to see Mitzi Shore in the day-to-day business as previous classes. But I was lucky in that way and lucky to go down the whole thing. I mean, I started cleaning bathrooms there and mopping. Then it was like, I ended up doing valet for all the comedians. I mean, I ended up there. I mean, I don't ask questions. I mean, it was a little too on the nose as to why I ended up cleaning bathrooms, mopping, and parking cars. But my eyes were on the prize.
Right.
I didn't ask questions. It was
Did you work at the same time that Ari Manis was a doorman?
No, it was a different class. So check this out. So when Francisco Ramos got passed,
right,
that position opened up, and they needed to fill it.
With another Latino?
Maybe. I don't know. It just worked out perfectly. But when I went in, I did a different job than he did. And so when he got passed is when I came in. So our timelines, his class is different.
Right.
So he was a class ahead of me. And, I worked for a few years and parked cars. And eventually I got passed.
Did Ari go after you, Ari Manis?
Ari was working, I think, tail end of me being there, or he might have been hired as soon as I got passed, like right around that time.
Okay, because you know me and Ari Manis live in the same apartment building. I live above him.
Really?
Yeah, every time
Great.
Whenever I'm talking to the guy that I did the book with, which is the survivor of that story, and then my manager, I'm Cuban, he's Cuban. We yell at the top of our lungs, and this guy will text me in the middle of it. Who are you killing? I feel sorry for them because I'm just yelling and he can hear me. It's
just a regular conversation.
Yeah,
right?
he's fine. He doesn't mind me saying this. He finds this funny. I had him on the Zoo, which is a talk show that we did here. And he is notoriously known as the worst guest that we've ever had on the Zoo. Don't know, because you're so nice. You're like, no. Is that he tried to make jokes that, like, just like I did earlier in the podcast, that did not land very well.
No.
and you know him. He sticks to the deadpan.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't come out of it. He's not shaken from that. So
I think he really figured out his voice. I don't know, like the deadpan thing. Like he's got it. He's got it down. He's very funny.
Yeah, we're trying to get the building sold so that we get bought out of our lease. He's playing hardball.
Nice.
Going back to breaking out of the Latino clique, you also have been kind of like noticed by the Joe Rogan clique, right? And that was big in the Comedy Store, even though Joe moved to Austin. Has he shown up? Like, have you seen him pop out?
Yeah, he recently had some shows there at the Comedy Store. I wasn't able to see him when he visited. Our schedules were different, but he came back and sold out a couple shows there at the Comedy Store in the main room. But yeah, it's like I'm very flattered to gain the respect of so many comedians that I look up to. Your Joe Rogans, your Bobby Lees, your Ian Edwards. I mean, the list goes on, and it's like I'm so flattered. And again, it's like I think even like my parents say this too. It's like it's so awesome to see you get the respect of your peers. It's like, who would have thought the kid that was mowing lawns with his dad at a young age and through college just to pay tuition and juggling another job, like who would have thought that kid would get the respect of his peers in the thing he decided to do. And that to me is like the biggest compliment to me, but also to like my folks.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Now, were you nervous when you went on the Joe Rogan show?
Of course, yeah. So you'll see what, like, if you see that episode when I went on there, I was so nervous. Like, I was just so giddy, and the first thing I told him is like, Joe, I was so nervous, I even laid out my outfit on the bed the day before just so I'd be ready to go. And then he goes, stop. He said, we're friends. It's like, and we're friends, but, as a fan of comedy, it's like I sometimes revert back to the fan right away as soon as I am able to be in a room with somebody I respect,
Okay,
like
can I tell you something?
The Bobby Lees, everybody.
When Brendan Schaub went on your tacos, I'm sorry, it's called Tacos?
Tacos con todo.
Tacos con todo. It's on the Complex Network. The same
Yeah.
people that do Hot Ones. It's kind of like a spin-off of Hot Ones, maybe. I don't know if you want to be associated with it. But when Brendan Schaub went on your thing, he laid out his nice like little tracksuits the night before. That's what I heard.
No,
Just kidding.
He's so buff. I wish I was that strong, man.
Yeah, no, I like the way the comedy's landscape is really diversified and like types and there's different scenes and stuff. Okay, going back to, because you were talking about like doing stuff with Polly. Cheesemate, because I grew up on MTV and the Weasel and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'll tell you this very interesting story that I just found out, right? So if you go to the Comedy Store, people, if you're not familiar with the Comedy Store, it's on Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood. And the one thing that sticks out of the building, as many people would know, but if you don't know, is that there's signatures. So when you get past, you get your name on the wall, right? Now, I heard this story, it blew my mind. So Polly is one of the only comedians who has his name on the wall twice. And there's a story behind it. Because as a young comic, he would come up, like trying to do stand-up. And, he was trying to find his footing and stand-up. And he wanted to get passed. And he kept going to his mom and said, pass me, put my name on the wall. And she refused to because he was not ready. She wasn't going to pass him just because he was her son, So he made him work, and he got to the point where he was so upset that he's like, I'm putting my name on the wall. So she says, you put your name on the wall, you're not passed. So he goes and paints his name on the wall, right? So he goes and he, tries to copy the font of the artist who I think it has been the same artist to this day that has put up all those names. So Paulie goes, puts his name up. Mitzi finds out that he put his name up on the wall, and she's like, I'm not passing you. So he kind of just figures out and kind of gets his footing as a stand-up in all the other local clubs until he's legitimately passed, and that's when he gets his name on the wall. So there's one that he wrote, and there's one that the artist himself
Why didn't they just paint over the first one?
Because it was behind. So the placement of the original name that Polly wrote, it's behind. So it's like kind of by the bathrooms. It's kind of like a little addition to the building where the restrooms are. So there's a staircase, metal staircase that comes out of the belly room.
The belly room.
It's right behind that. So it's like hidden. Nobody could see it, but it's there.
That's funny. Now, let me ask you about this. You did his podcast that he was shooting out of the apartment in Silver Lake, right?
I don't think I did.
Okay, well, but was he living? Did you see the podcast that he's doing?
Yes.
I don't know that he's still there.
No, he
was he
moved.
really living in a one-bedroom apartment in Silver Lake?
Bro, he was. He's such an artist that at the end of the day, like he almost looks for these opportunities. I'm like, you don't need to be living here. It's
Okay,
like,
but I heard through the grapevine that he was renting out his big house in the Hollywood Hills.
yeah, probably. I'm sure. I mean, I don't know how. Yeah,
But this is like funny for like fans. Like even people who have made it and you think are all set up, sometimes they gotta still kind of like like grind and like Airbnb their big house out.
it's always a grind, baby. Yeah, I mean, it's always a grind. But yeah, he lived there for. I did visit him when he was living there a bunch. And I know it looks small, but it was pretty cool. It was like in the mix and great backyard.
It looks like a nice apartment.
Yeah, I was like, this is nice. But I mean, Paulie will forever be an artist, and that's like his most conducive, creative ground for him.
He seems so sensitive. Like you can tell, like when he was on like Joe Rogan or something, like he wanted he wanted a little bit of validation in the nicest way, and and it's funny he's not a fan of Bert Kreischer taking off his shirt, and that's just like he was.
What do you think that comedians? Do you think that comedians have a level of sensitivity that most people are not really aware of?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
You see it.
Yeah, because
Across the board, you
yeah,
think?
well, I mean, and myself dabbling into it, I mean, like part of it is a lot of humor starts out as a defense mechanism. Look, I read this thing, and this might be taking the humor out of humor, but I read this philosophical quote from like hundreds of years ago, trying to explain what humor is. And it basically said, like the Greeks invented tragedy and comedy are two sides of the same thing. What comedy is ripping out the emotion and the seriousness of something, of a situation, right? And what's left is the logic that you can play with. And laughter is the radiation off of something serious. So a lot of humor, not all humor, but a lot of humor might be something that like, somebody slips on a banana peel. That's negative. Somebody falls. Some negative thing kind of happens. It doesn't always have to be negative. But when you take the seriousness out of it, when you take the emotion out of it, it goes from dramatic to comedy. And what's left is this logical game that you can play and that you can see irony, you can see. And so when you laugh, you're radiating off what could be the serious emotion you have towards something.
Wow. And it radiates almost like you're expelling that kind of thing.
Yeah, like radiating, like the decay, like almost like radiation. You know, it's coming off of you, and it comes off in the form of laughter. But it's really is you're just you're doing away with whatever serious emotion you could have towards it. Because if you have a serious emotion, you're not laughing.
Wow. That's the most that's a very interesting way to look at it, and I definitely want to see more. If you have a link for anything,
It was some quote I
send it
saw
to
in
me.
Book of Quotes that always stuck with me.
That's amazing.
I told Duncan Trussell that it blew his mind.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's it's mind blowing. That's why I'm like I want to learn more about that.
Mr. Iglesias, is that still happening? How was it working with Gabriel on a sitcom?
Gabriel is a very, very talented human being. I mean, from stand-up to acting. I mean, the amount of work that he had to put in during that time for that show was insane. It was super fun. I mean, the writers for Mr. Iglesias were like second to none. They were
Was Martin Rizzo on that?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But working there, I mean, just to see the cast work. I was there for a few episodes, and just seeing the whole cast just kind of vibe and get together, I mean, was second to none. It was great. I had done a multicam show before, and that was fun. And
On TBS way back in the day.
Yeah, way back in the
The
day.
show about the bar, what was that?
Yeah, Sullivan and Son.
Right.
Yeah, with Steve Byrne. So I feel like that definitely helped me out a lot when it came to like, my small role here in Mr. Iglesias. But yeah, it was so fun. Everyone just got along, and it was funny. It was great. The kids, I mean, were very talented. I mean, they were, mind blown, like what they were able to do. The cameras are like, all right, cut, take it from the top, and they would deliver the line fresh. And it was literally a masterclass from these young actors.
Well, speaking of kids, you're doing a kids book.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I got to deal with Mine Edition. So I pitched some stories that I wanted to tell as a kids book, and we ended up getting a deal. So it's like we had a bidding war to see who was going to get the rights to the books, and we ended up going in the direction of Mine Edition, which the first book is coming out next year. So we haven't really like kind of solidified a title, but keep an eye out. I mean, I'm going to promote it.
It's about like you as a kid.
Yeah, essentially, the first book is me telling the story of like when I used to work with my father, right, as a gardener, but kind of, so the story kind of goes that, whenever I would work with my dad, he would tell me it's like, he would fill up this jug of water and he would say, this is how I know how long my day is going to be. Once basically once the water's gone, I know it's time to go home, so I would take it at face value. So I would get a cup of water, toss it here, another cup of water, toss it there, go fill up a doggy bowl or something. And by like, I don't know, 10:30 in the morning, it's like, hey, water's gone, we got to go back. And he's like, nah, man, we still have a lot of work to do. That was just my way of making work fun. So we explore that story, that father-son relationship of like working and making work fun. And, yeah, and in the story, you learn a very big lesson. And once that comes out, I would love to send you a copy.
Absolutely. Have you written it yet?
Yeah, it's going down. It's done. It's turned in. We're working with a very amazing illustrator, Eliza Kinks out of Austin. She's amazing.
So it's like it's a picture book with the dialogue. Okay?
Yeah. It's the wording. It's the fun pictures. She puts her own style into it. Her style is so awesome. It's like through a lens of a little kid. Very colorful. Her characters are second to none. I mean, it was just a great collaboration, and Mine Edition was very just open to me wanting to tell a story that resonates with me and my folks.
Good.
My background, my upbringing.
And it'll resonate with a lot of kids, man.
Yeah, and we're working right now on the second title, so we'll disclose more pretty soon. But that first one it'll drop sometime mid next year.
Going back to the comedy show for a second, I meant to ask you. I drove by there. They're painting over the main entrance. So are they painting over the signatures?
Are they really? I was not
Okay,
aware of that.
you know the main room, the door to the main room on Sunset.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, they painted that black. Were there signatures on around that door?
Oh, that's a good question, because they recently had the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, I know,
so I
yeah.
think they might have been doing some upgrades and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because they put kind of like this wrap over the glass doors to the main room entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they may be like painting it, Yeah, because that thing is like not wood. It's like an addition that they did, so they could like paint it and then repaint the names on it. Maybe.
Interesting. A lot of crazy stuff happens in the green room behind the main room.
The green room behind the main room.
Yeah, you know the one with the piano and stuff in the mirrors?
Oh, yeah.
Like, especially if Joey Diaz and Bobby Lee are in there at the same time, it's crazy.
Really?
I mean, maybe back in the day. Maybe still.
Okay.
Maybe still.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. It's pretty empty now.
It's that you're the kind of guy that hangs out, when you have a spot, you're like out watching the other comics. You're not one of the comics that hangs out in the back, like fucking around, getting drunk.
No, I mean, I'll grab a drink. You know, I'm out there blasting cigarettes maybe.
What's your drink?
It's either Hennessy ginger ale or mezcal and ginger beer or ginger ale.
Okay, that one's very hip hop, one's very Mexican regional.
Mexican American, yeah, I mean, there it is, Mexican American.
But you got the hip hop thing going too, man. Dude, so are you going on? You're traveling around the country. Just to wrap it up, how can people find out about where to see you and where are some of the places that you're going to in the next couple months?
Absolutely. So currently I'm on the Empty Calorie Tour. It was my first official tour. It started earlier this year. So right now, next week, middle of April, we're going to be in Austin for Moon Tower Festival, then Wilmington, North Carolina, and then we go Jacksonville, Florida. We're going to Philly. There's a bunch of dates. You can check them out at JesusTrejo.com and live shows. And we got a bunch of shows. Click the link, get the tickets. It's a good time.
Now, you did the Miami Improv.
I did.
Okay, because I'm from Miami and I'm glad that they have an improv again. They used to have a more cozy improv in Coconut Grove. I don't know if it's the same.
I remember the Coconut Grove.
Yeah.
So it's the same management, but now it's over. I forget the name of the thing. There's a very specific name.
Is it Brickell or
No?
But it's still around Coconut Grove.
It's close, but
Okay.
it's like on the other side. It's beautiful, brand new club.
Okay,
it's
but
up top.
but is it a little? I saw like Andrew Schultz's because he lived in Miami for a while. He was doing a lot of sets, but there's like a part that's over there. Is it a little kind of like?
No, it's a massive showroom.
Yeah?
Like, have you been to the Improv here at the Brea Improv?
Yeah, I've been to the. That's a big. Okay, so I think
That's exactly what it is, but it just fans out more in the back. I mean, it's a massive.
How do
room.
you feel about Miami crowds though? Because they're everything's a party. So sometimes they chime in a little too much, right? Like
Yeah.
the Caribbean Latinos, they're a little.
I think it was definitely like I had a good time, and you can tell the vibe there is very much like upbeat
Right.
party. It's like there wasn't really like a negative vibe. It was very upbeat, and I think after the first show, I picked up on it, and it's like the jokes had to be delivered like a little more with some more jazz, if you will. Yeah, I mean, so it was great. The food in Miami, I hadn't been in so long.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I went to go get so I was in a rush and I didn't have time to shave my head and get my beard done. So I went to a barbershop in Miami. They gave me this little thing, this little plastic, it looked like the creamer, right? The creamer cup. And they put coffee in there. It's like, do you want
Cuban coffee.
Yeah, I had never really had it, right? I had had it before, but not like that. They give me the little
It's
cup.
a cafe. They go cafecito.
Yeah, cafecito. So they gave it to me, and the guy goes around with this little kind of like pitcher. I'm like, oh, thank you. I'm like, yeah, I would like some coffee. He's like, we gave you coffee. I'm like, I thought you were like letting me taste it to see if I like it so I can get the cup.
Because it's strong.
Well, I didn't know it was strong. He's like, do you want another one? I'm sure. And I'm like, are you really going to give me a bunch of these? And he's like, yeah. And they were like a little confused. They were kind of talking. They kept bringing me a bunch. After a while, they're just kind of like looking at me. I was like, you all right, man? I'm like, I feel weird. I was jittery. I really was.
It's basically the Cuban coffee is like really strong espresso with a bunch of sugar in it. That's why you take it in shots.
Now I know. Yeah, don't
Dude,
do more.
one big cup of that would keep me up all night.
Yes. Oh, it was like jittery. Like I kept scratching myself. I'm like, I don't know what I drank, but for the show, I mean, I was wired. And yeah, that night I was just like up.
Well, and Cubans don't need that. Like even me, like I drink a lot of coffee. People are like, but you have a lot of energy. But it's, you know what? It's the mental focus. We have ADD, and being really, really caffeinated makes us focus.
Do you drink? Do you know how to make the Cuban coffee version?
I do. I have like Bustelo is Cuban coffee. It's
Right.
the brand. You can get it here. Or La Llave, which is made by LA Cubans, Gaviria coffee out here in LA.
La Llave. That's exactly the energy. I'm sure that it feels like
it's the green thing. So you make it as an espresso. So if you have an espresso machine, you make it like that, and then you just add a bunch of sugar and you make it frothier. You know.
I'm gonna come over for some coffee.
Absolutely.
How's that?
Well, you know where I live. You've been there before for
Yeah.
hours.